My name is Sally. I'm a compulsive eater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I write them down. I commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat in between meals, no matter what. Abstinence is the most important thing in my life without exception. And a day at a time, I work to put my program first. By the grace of God and the fellowship of this community, I have been abstinent since October 7th, 1990. Um, and I was asked a couple of days ago if I could qualify today, and this is earlier than I usually get up, but I was taught to say yes to service. So here I am. Um, and I was thinking a bit about what I wanted to share about because, the span of eating time and the span of abstinent time, not everything fits into 15 minutes. So. And the thing that came to me was a promise of the gray sheet that is not like written down in anything that we read in our meetings, but that is extremely important. And it is, you won't be hungry. And um, I remember being told when I was, I don't know, a few months in, one of the people who'd been abstinent longer said to me that, there's a prayer to say at the end of the meal when you think you could do the whole thing over again, and that is, thank you, God, for making it be enough. And by the time I finished saying that, my brain would realize that my stomach was full. And because otherwise, my brain needs help realizing that. Um, I mean, I am not sure whether I was technically hungry ever before Gray Sheet because I would eat before knew I was thinking about eating. Um, and when I have eating dreams, that's what it's like. I'm in the middle of eating something and suddenly realize that I'm supposed to be abstinent, and this is not abstinent, and I've screwed up, and it's a very disturbing dream. And when I began to have those dreams, it was a hint to me that abstinence really might be the most important thing in my life. Um, which initially was something I thought was ridiculous, but every other thing in my life depends on it, including my relationship with my higher power, because as a long timer said in the meeting back in Ann Arbor when I was still fairly new, you can't talk to God with your mouth full. And, I had glimpses of spiritual experience prior to Gray Sheet, but nothing that stuck. Just as I'd had a ton of therapy and nothing had stuck, because I was still eating and still, creating damage and still trying to get rid of feelings before I knew I was having a feeling. Because frankly, a feeling was the last thing I wanted to have, and I thought mine would kill me. Um, and I remember going to the New York City Roundup sometime in the 90s. It may have been the late 90s even, after I came back to the States from 4 years in England. And a long timer I'd met a couple of times and talked to was on the stage and talking about how, she came in Cambridge back in the olden days, and they said to her, "You won't be hungry." And she had trouble believing this because that was unimaginable. And it was unimaginable. I didn't try very often to lose weight. I put most of my energy into shoring up my denial, and trying to convince myself and anyone around me that I didn't need to lose weight. I was not fat, I was voluptuous. And but the very few occasions when I had tried to diet or tried to stop eating, I was hungry all the time. I was just like, I couldn't stop thinking about the food. And in Gray Sheet, after I got abstinent and after I got through the withdrawal, and the thing I remember most clearly about the withdrawal is not so much the wanting to eat part, although I was certainly having cravings, but how sick I felt otherwise. how absolutely miserable it was and how I would not have been feeling like that if I wasn't really an addict. That I would not be feeling like the people in the treatment center who'd been coming off of heroin looked like and sounded like if I wasn't actually addicted to these things that I had just stopped having. And, I hadn't wanted to believe that I was addicted to sugar, never mind grain, because all I ate was, starch with starch added with sugar on top, and there might be a few green things or a little bit of protein for decoration. Um, and, the food I had at first on the gray sheet was, I didn't know how to eat this food, so it wasn't very interesting, but I was not actually physically hungry. And I was told this many times, if you think you are hungry and it is not mealtime, something is going on with you emotionally. And I have found that to be true. I have also found that the more time passes in abstinence, the more I have to do things like set alarm clocks to remind myself to eat because I get busy with my life in between meals. And I'm not sitting and thinking, which I did quite a bit in early abstinence, like how long until lunch? How long until dinner? How long until breakfast? Uh, uh, I, I prepare my meals and weigh them and measure them, and I like to cook, and I did figure out how to make gray sheet food that I really enjoyed eating. And but mostly, if I don't have to be shopping for it or cooking it or weighing and measuring and eating it, I don't think about it very much. I don't have to think about it very much. I'm not hungry in between meals. And I remember my mother saying to me several times, I can't, how can you eat that much food? It was not that much food. I was on the weight loss plan, but it was basically what she meant was, how can you eat that much food and lose weight? How can you lose weight without being hungry all the time? But gray sheet food is enough. And this was what I learned through years of abstinence that there might be changes in my metabolism or my activity level that would mean my weight went up a bit or down a bit after the point where I reached my goal weight. For instance, when I first got abstinent, I became very active. I was lifting weights 5 days a week. I was walking a lot. I developed, nice muscle tone, and I would be wondering, like, when I walked past buildings, who is that skinny woman reflected in the window? And and so I got to maintenance, and I was reminded in meetings that maintenance does not necessarily mean more food. It means more program. And but I got some extra food, and uh, then and I was enjoying that. And then after I'd been abstinent for not even quite a year and a half, I got very sick, and I was not able to go out and be active. And I put some weight on, and I was at first anxious about this, and my sponsor just worked with me to, reduce my food. I mean, the very first time she said, I don't want to mess with anything right now because your life is so, disrupted. But after a month or two, when I was kind of getting used to this new feeble person that I had become, uh, she reduced my food back to the weight loss plan, and the weight, the extra weight came off. And I realized that, as long as I'm abstinent, I'm not going to wake up and be 200 pounds tomorrow. And I might gain a little weight. I might lose a little weight. Thank you, Fainwa. But that is entirely, um, that's really my sponsor's business. I just have to weigh myself once a month and tell her what it is. And what she generally does is look for trends. If it's been going up several months in a row or down several months in a row, or then, she'll suggest adjustments to my food. And after menopause, I discovered I did not need as much food to maintain my weight. And, it's enough. And if you'd asked me back when I was having, large amounts of protein and an extra fruit, um, if I thought that the amount of food I'm eating now would be enough, I would have thought you were crazy. But it is enough. It's always enough. This is the thing about Gray Sheet. And I have just been through a delightful procedure that those of us of a certain age tend to have to go through. And some of us had to start going through them earlier because family history of colon cancer. Um, and I had to do 4 days of prep for this. Trust me, the procedure is nothing if you haven't had one. The prep is the miserable bit. And so there were 2 days when the only solid food I could have was protein because they want you to avoid fiber, which means fruits and vegetables, which are most of what I eat. And so instead of the fruits and vegetables, I just had clear liquids. And then 2 days of only clear liquids, which I added it up, came to 450 calories a day. And I wasn't hungry. It's partly because my belly was so full of liquid. I was kind of sloshing as I moved, but also, it was okay. I was tired. My brain didn't work all that well. I was really looking forward to having it be over, and I was definitely like not wanting to see any more clear liquids by the time they went and did the procedure. But I didn't starve to death. You know, I don't think a human would do very well on 450 calories for a long period of time. But for a few days, all that happens is my little addict brain says, "Ooh, I wonder if I'll be skinnier on waiting." The procedure was fine. Uh, 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 you know, I'm okay. I'm safe from this for another 5 years. But I just wanted to tell people, especially if you are new or coming back, and anybody who might listen to the recording, if you look at the gray sheet and think there's nothing on there I eat, which I did, when I first saw the gray sheet, there was nothing there on I ate, and I thought it was going to be miserable deprivation. The gray sheet is not miserable deprivation. It's beautiful food. And at this time of year, when there's all kinds of ripe produce, it's out where I live in California, it's especially beautiful food. Um, and it is abundant. And working with my sponsor, working with the rest of the community, and not trying to do it my way because my best thinking got me into a treatment center for, suicidal depression, codependency, and compulsive eating. Um, I can get through all kinds of situations that I would not have thought it was possible to get through. And so I'm very grateful to be here. I'm glad to be asked to speak. I'm going to have breakfast after this meeting is over. So I will conclude there and look forward to hearing everybody else sharing. Thank you.